We chose our market. I'm originally from the Midwest. My family lives in the Midwest, and we saw a lot of need there. It's an aging population. It's fairly inexpensive to obtain and to maintain properties there. There's really, really large medical campuses and really, really large university campuses. So we have demand from medical professionals. Everybody thinks midterm rentals, they think travel nurses, right?
Mm-hmm.
That used to be 90% of the demand, probably. I don't know the exact statistic, but it used to be the vast majority. And especially with people, the impression everybody got from midterm rentals was you're renting to travel nurses. Now there's still a demand for that, but the demand for other use cases has exploded. So you've got interns, you've got people who are working on developing data centers, you have professors, you have academics, you have relocating families, you have all of these um, tenant types. So what we saw in the markets that we're in the Midwest, which is the majority of our portfolio, is there is a need for medical. There is a need for professors and academics. There's a lot of people going there for internships.
Mm.
And there's also a lot of relocations. So we had a really strong mix. The other nice thing is that my family is there. So if we,
Yeah.
we need some boots on the ground, we have it. I think it's really important when you're looking at a market to not necessarily look at only the market and the numbers, but also look at what's the story behind that, right?
Mm.
If you're coming from the short-term rental world, you think Nashville, people are going there for, a bachelor party, a bachelorette party. San Diego, you're going to go for a beach weekend. What are the use cases that's driving someone to Cincinnati, right? Is it
Mm-hmm.
that they're building a whole lot of new data centers? Is it that there is a lot of infrastructure going? Like what is causing the demand from these midterm tenants? It's not going to be a beach weekend,
Yeah.
right? But it could be that they're building a whole new, a whole new downtown. It could be that there's a new program for, a certain type of medical treatment. It could be that there was a natural disaster or that it's really prone to natural disasters, or it could have been that relocations to that area are spiking and those people need housing for months on end. So you have to kind of put on your hat and investigate what is taking people to that market.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. I advise the same thing. And I think people will get caught up saying, well, yeah, there's lots of different reasons people are coming. But I think speaking to one ideal guest is way better than trying to appeal to 90 different types of guests. It just, you
100%.
get watered down and diluted. So,
Yeah.
so you started with Iowa then when you said the
Yep.
Midwest, that was the Iowa market.
Yep.
Okay. And then
Yep.
you moved into Florida from there?
Yeah. So our Florida is our long-term rental. We have had the Florida
Oh,
property
okay.
since the pandemic. That was one of our pre-existing ones. And we've actually been tempted to turn that one into a midterm rental because there's a lot of relocations in the area.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had a tenant there under a long-term lease. So, but it's always kind of in the back of my mind as an option, which
Yeah.
is nice with midterms because if we decide to furnish it, it's not as heavy of a lift as if we were to furnish a short term, right?
Mm.
Like we just need more basic furnishings. We
Okay.
don't need all of like the glitz and the glamour and all of the decor and this and that. We just need really nice basics.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's kind of like we could pivot into it if we
Yeah.
decided we wanted to. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. And it's so
Yeah.
ironic because we started in Indiana, similar probably
Okay.
markets to Iowa.
Yeah.
Um, and then we expanded into Florida,
Okay.
Southwest Florida.
Yeah.
A little bit different way of doing it, but
Yeah.
similar markets. And,
What
you kind
cities
of
are you
have,
in Florida?
we're actually we have two duplexes that we built that are in Port Charlotte, Florida,
Okay.
Southwest. So,
Yeah. Ours is in
yeah.
Cape Coral.
Oh yeah, so right down the road.
Yeah.
And so it's nice because opposite seasons, and then also we can use it ourselves. That was kind of the plan. The
Yeah.
cash flow actually is better in the Midwest
Yes.
from our experience, but we still cash flow well in Florida, and then also we can use it ourselves as well,
I
which is
mean,
kind
that's
of
the
long term.
bonus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but I'm curious from your perspective. So a lot of people will tell me, like when I'm talking to them initially about getting into just real estate investing in general, it seems like everybody has like an idea of like, okay, I'm like long-term rentals are what I'm cut out for, because of X, Y, and Z, like perceptions that they
Mm-hmm.
have, whether they're true or not, they're
Mm-hmm.
perceptions, or midterm is the way to go, or short term, I just want to do short term and it's all various reasons. But um, I guess, how did you choose midterm? And then do you recommend that people just pick one of those? Or do you see a lot of people doing both short term and midterm, or
Yeah.
a combination of all three, maybe?
Yeah. For us, choosing midterm was fairly instinctual because long term just didn't cash flow the way we wanted to cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
We were never looking for massive monthly cash flow. Obviously, the more the better, right? But we wanted what we didn't like about long term was, especially in the markets that we've been in lately, you might make enough to cover your expenses, but if the water heater goes out, if the furnace goes out, a lot of times, like, then you're underwater for a while, right? It's a real thin margin.
Mm-hmm.
Midterms, we really liked that the cash flow, the margin is so much more significant, but it's not nearly as intimidating as short term. Short term was very intimidating for me. Me and my husband both work full time. We've got kids. We've got 100 animals, it feels like, in our house at any given point. We're running here and there. And it felt like if we're going to do short term, we're probably going to need a manager. And then at that point, they take the cut that we might as well do a midterm, right? And I know
Mm-hmm.
that's different for everybody. Everybody's different markets and how you can get those numbers to work. What we also liked about approaching with the midterm is that we can flex in and out of short term. I
Mm.
feel like if you were a short term rental operator, or vice versa, if you're a midterm operator and you are not open to a hybrid method, you are instantly losing out on so much. If you're from a midterm stance, you're missing out on a high season potentially. I don't care what your market is, there is a high season. I don't
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in the middle of Nebraska, there is some sort of high season, and that high season might be because there is a festival or a fair or whatnot, right? That you can position yourself around. If you're in a vacation market, obviously you have a lot of high season, but you also have some low season. So I think from a midterm operator perspective, it's really easy to shift into short term opportunistically in different times of the year. And for a short term operator, I think a lot of times in a down season, or a time where maybe you want to go on vacation yourself, or you're a little burnt out, you need a break, you're trying to back up and focus on growing your portfolio, or maybe you've got operational stuff you're focusing on where you need to lift that management side a little bit. Shifting into midterm can keep your calendar a whole lot more full, and oftentimes in the down season for a short-term rental operator, be more profitable because you
Mm-hmm.
don't have so many gaps, right? You might be taking less on an average daily rate, but when you've got a 3-month stay, you're coming out ahead of the game if it's the down season. So I think if you are in a midterm or a short term, you have to be looking at the opportunity for a hybrid there. And midterm is too easy to not put your cards on the table. It's so easy to list your property on Furnished Finder. It's so easy to start marketing yourself and put yourself inside of that game of opportunity, that it's kind of like, why wouldn't you, especially if you're in a market where you have a down season, or if you're like, I'm focusing on building a duplex, right? I need this property to be a little easier for a while. It's a very, very easy lift, especially if you're coming from short term.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about this, is that there's no perfect answer. Like, you
Right.
can customize it to your liking. But we've kind of done exactly what you described, and it's worked so well for us. Like, I mentioned before we got on that I'm at the southern tip of Lake Michigan, so beautiful place in the summertime. Right now, we just got blanketed with a foot of snow.
Yeah.
Little light on bookings, so it's a perfect time to give a 30-day plus discount. And we have a whole bunch of midterm renters coming
Mm-hmm.
in that are workers or building. To your point,
Yep.
there's a big data center going in close by, and traveling nurses, all that. So 100% occupancy is better than 20% occupancy in the off season, even at a lower rate. So
And then you have someone in that property too, right? So when you get a
yeah,
foot of snow, you don't have to wonder, oh, I wonder if the utilities are still functioning. I
yeah,
wonder if the front door is snowed shut, right? Like you have someone there
yes,
who's taking
totally,
care of your property because they're living there for 2 or 3
right.
months. They're not just staying there for 2 or 3 days. It's their home for a while. Like they want to take care of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I had one other question I was curious about your properties, and then I want to get into some more Furnished Finder questions. But how did you finance the ones that you purchased? Did you guys use conventional financing or
Yeah,
DSCR
so
loans or what?
we used DSCR loans,
Okay,
and we actually found the best way that we found was through very small bank. I really love working with small banks when it comes to things like a DSCR loan. It was so small that like the vice president of the bank who I was working with would just call or text me and be like, "Hey, I need this document," right? But
that's awesome.
DSCR loans are so fantastic and so easy on, the paperwork and the requirements. It is a much easier thing than a conventional loan.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. And a lot of people will go with large DSCR lenders because it just feels easier than making a relationship with a local lender. But those small banks, yeah, I've had the same experience. Just
Yeah.
great to work with in a lot of cases. They're way more flexible in a lot of cases
Oh,
too. So
I will
yeah.
literally, when we're in acquisition mode, I'll send the Zillow link to the person I work with at the bank and be like, "Hey, would you help me finance this?" And they're like,
Yeah.
what do you think you could get for rent?" And I let them know. And in 5 emails back and forth, it's like, "Cool, we're good to go." And they're like, "Oh, we just did one with you 8 months ago. Like, we don't really need to redo all this stuff. We're good to go." And I'm like,
Nice.
it's about those relationship, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess shifting a little bit to Furnish Finders, and I know a lot of people on here have probably heard of it or heard the term, but I guess can you explain the difference between Furnish Finders and other platforms like an Airbnb or Verbo?
Yeah. So Furnished Finder is 100% monthly rentals, midterm rentals. Same thing, different names. It's all we do, right? So on Airbnb, you can rent a property or list a property or for 2 days, or you could rent it for 6 months, depending on the person's calendar specifics. But on Furnished Finder, it's only a 30-day minimum, right? So the tenants that are coming to our site, the millions of tenants and travelers per year that are coming to our site, are specifically looking for a place to stay for 30 days or more. So they
Mm,
are those travel nurses. They are, academics. They're relocating families. They're displaced families. They're corporate workers, right? When we're talking about these data centers, that takes a lot of people coming in on contract, um, building it out, and then taking off, right? So lots of contract and corporate workers. The other big difference is that we do not work on a commission model. So Airbnb, we all know you can list your property for free. When you get a booking, they're going to take on average somewhere around 14% between you and the guest. We have flipped that model on its head a little bit because with midterm rentals, it's all about the relationship and we want you to be in control. So when you pay $179 to list your property, and then when you make a booking, you get all of the rent. Okay. Because
mm,
it's a relationship business. It's kind of like when you think about renting a long-term rental, right? So we don't take a commission. We give you the tools to book it like someone would book a long-term rental. Like we have a screening tool available for an extra cost if you want to have your tenant do a screening, lease templates, all of those tools. If you need them, you're not required to use them by any means. But really, our goal is to make the best matches between tenants and landlords possible so that it's beneficial for everybody.
got it. Yeah. I was going to ask that about screening because I know with Airbnb, you can see, guests' previous reviews, and a lot of people use that to screen whether they're going to allow a guest to book or not. So, do you recommend doing a full background check as if they're a long term tenant?
100,000%.
Yeah.
Yes. I will be like, it scares me to not do
Yeah.
it, right? And midterm tenants are great. They're traveling because they need to, right? oftentimes they're on a stipend, so they're employed, they want to get back home, right? They're fantastic tenants, but you
Mm-hmm.
want to know who's at your property for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to know, right? You want to know their payment history. You want to know if they have a criminal record. I've only had a handful of times where something has come back where I'm not comfortable with it. But I screen every single tenant 18 and up.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Because after 30 days, especially in most states, they have landlord rights. And, if they didn't, if you had the wrong tenant or they, didn't
Yeah.
move out or something, you'd have to go through that eviction process. So it would make sense to want to make sure that you're getting a great guest in there. And
Yeah.
I think one other thing that scares a lot of people about midterm rentals is they think, well, I'll get a 3 month booking, but then I might have a gap of a month or two before my next booking.
Sure.
So how do you prevent that? I guess what's some best practices for that?
Yeah, it can be tough to, and this is unfortunate because a lot of people kind of get scared off in the beginning. Typically, people are looking to book their next property about a month in advance. Okay.
Okay.
So, and that can vary. I have had travelers who've reached out and they're like, I need somewhere tomorrow. I've had people who are like, I'm looking for next June. And I'm like, I can't think 8 weeks past now. I need you to calm down. Right. But it, so if I list my property today and I say, it's vacant as of today, it might take me a few weeks, a month to get a booking. And that is, an unfortunate way to start your midterm rental experience. So I always tell people, list it before it's ready. If
Mm,
you're still furnishing it, I don't care, list it, right? You can put in the photos, furniture coming soon, right? Or like, here's some of the furniture I'm going to be using, or message me about questions about the furniture, or we're putting finishing touches on it. But get get your name in the hat, right? Get in there, get in the
yeah.
game, because it might take some time. And the other thing is it's just basic marketing principles when it comes to marketing your property. And Airbnb and short-term rental professionals, you guys are the best at this. You guys are the ones who will make a listing that looks really, really, really good, right? And you understand how you might have to tweak your headline, you might have to tweak your photo, you might have to tweak your pricing a little bit here and there, right? But like, those are all things that will help you succeed. So the best thing is making your listing really shine and being active. Okay. So on Furnished Finder and with midterm rentals in general, since it is based around that relationship, there's going to be some conversations before a booking happens, right? Or
Mm,
you might get a lead and the lead doesn't seem perfect, but there's a lot of potential to it. So you could reply and say, oh, my property's not available on February 1st, but it is on the 3rd. Could you stay in a hotel for 2 days? And they might say, yeah, for your property, I totally would do that, right? So there's some conversations that happen. So you have to be active and you have to be responsive. Um, but then you're off the hook for usually 3 months or 6 months,
yeah.
or quite a while, right? So you might have a gap here and there. And I do tell people, when you have a gap, let's say if you have a 2 week gap, rent it short term for 2 weeks,
Mm,
right? Or maybe now is you have the 2 week gap. Maybe now's the time to replace that countertop that you've been procrastinating, or upgrade the water heater, or any of that deferred maintenance, right? But if you're experienced or at least open to short term rental, you can totally fill the gaps with short term rentals, which is so helpful.